Now we're just waiting for his confirmation.
Okay.
Stream has started, Chair.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Live Well Scrutiny Committee, Tuesday the 27th of May at 6 p.m. Before we start the meeting, I do need to go through some housekeeping with you. May I remind everyone present that the meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded via the internet, and this recording archived for future viewing. Could all participants please mute themselves when not speaking in order to avoid any background noise or feedback when other participants are speaking? If a participant wishes to speak, can they use the remote raise hand function? If a participant raises their hand via the remote function and is not subsequently invited to speak by the chair, please could they turn their camera on to indicate or place a message in the chat function. When invited to address by the chair, please could all participants ensure that their microphone and camera is on to ensure that they can be seen and heard when actively participating. If this is not possible for any reason, please bring this to the attention of the chair and/or Democratic Services Officer as soon as possible. Please ensure that all debate is raised verbally and not via the chat function for the sake of the recording. The chat function may be used to highlight any technical issues and/or to grab the attention of the chair or Democratic Services Officer. If any participant has difficulty hearing or being heard when they are addressing the committee, then they should let the chair or Democratic officer know. So, please could I welcome all committee and non-committee elected members, cabinet members, our officers, and also anyone watching the live meeting broadcast. Moving on to the agenda, item 1. Could we have nominations for the appointment of vice chair, please? Councillor Hennessy?
Christine Cave, please.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Thomas?
Councillor Lovelock Edwards, please.
Okay. Councillor Lloyd Selby?
And I'd like to second the nomination of Councillor Lovelock Edwards, please.
Okay, thank you. Looking for a seconder for Councillor Hennessy's nomination. Councillor Cave? Councillor Cave?
Councillor Cave, would you be able to come onto screen, please?
Thank you. Councillor Cave, I take it you're seconding?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Well, we will go to a vote then. Could Amy? Oh, Councillor Hennessy. What's that?
Sorry, Chair. Gillian Bruce has just told me she's having problems getting in. So I don't know if there's an issue for her.
Councillor Bruce is already connected, Councillor Hennessy. I have spoken to her previously. Her connection was okay. I'm not sure if she'd like to come onto screen now to test that. And if my colleague Mark could prepare the votes just while we're checking the connection with Councillor Bruce. If you could press the large activation button in the centre of your screen, please, Councillor Bruce. We'll touch base with Councillor Bruce shortly, Chair, if that's okay. Would you like me to check before we proceed to the vote?
Yes, please.
Yes, if you just bear with me one moment.
Thank you. Apologies, everyone. We're just checking that Councillor Bruce is going to be able to vote, as I don't want anyone to miss out on their chance to vote.
Hello, Chair. Thank you for your patience. Oh, there you are.
Oh, I can see we have Councillor Bruce.
Lovely.
Wonderful.
Don't touch anything.
Yeah. There
If
you
we
go,
could go
Chair.
ahead and get the vote set up, please.
Yes, absolutely. I believe my
Amy.
colleague Mark was doing that whilst we were waiting. So are you happy to proceed, Mark?
Right, just to let you know, Amy, Chair, we've done the first vote, which is for the nomination for Councillor Cave for Vice Chair. Once you're ready, I'll start that now. Bear with me a second.
Yes, please.
So the vote has started, Chair. Just as a reminder to all committee members that once this vote has concluded, if they wish to see the participants list, they will need to select the List tab, which is on the right-hand side of your screen. If Mark could let us know when all votes are in.
Right, just to check, we have 9 votes.
That's
Yeah,
that's correct, Mark.
that's done then.
Yep.
Bear with me a second. Do you want me to put the results on the screen? Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah, bear with me.
Okay, Chair, so those results are displaying for you. They will automatically time out shortly, and then if you're happy, we'll move to the second nomination for Councillor Lovelock Edwards.
Thank you. Yes, I'll be happy for that to happen.
We'll go straight into the next vote, please, Mark, if you could start that as soon as you're ready. There you go, Chair. I believe the vote has now commenced.
Yes, it has. It's come up on my screen.
Thank you. If you could kindly stop that vote once we have all 9 votes cast, Mark. Hopefully that's displaying for you, Chair, with 6 votes for and 3 against.
Okay. So on the results of that vote, Councillor Lovelock Edwards is the Vice Chair of this committee. Congratulations, Councillor Lovelock Edwards. I look forward to working with you again. We made a good team on Homes and Safe. So, yes, I do look forward to working with you again. Agenda item 2 is apologies for absence. Do we have any?
None to myself, Chair. However, I have received notification from Councillor Morgan that he may be joining us late.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item 3 is the minutes of previous meetings. The first being Healthy Living and Social Care Scrutiny held on the 1st of April 2025. Are we happy with those meetings? And if so, can we have a proposer and a seconder?
You've had a proposer.
And Councillor Lloyd Selby, are you seconding?
Happy to second.
Okay, thank you. Apologies for the delay in calling on you both. It was a little slow showing it on my screen. Okay, so the next bit is Homes and Safe Communities Scrutiny Committee held on the 2nd of April 2025. Are we happy with these minutes? And if so, can I have a proposer and seconder? Councillor Hanks.
Happy to accept them, Chair.
Okay, and I was also at that meeting, so I will second. Thank you. Agenda item 4, declarations of interest. Do we have any? Councillor Lloyd Selby.
Thank you, Chair. Declare a personal interest in relation to agenda item 7 and agenda item 8. I have relatives in receipt of social care packages of support. I have dispensation to speak and vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other declarations of interest? I see no more hands going up. Okay, so I will move on to agenda item 5, which is a request for consideration regarding Calcutta Sports Centre next steps. Now, this was called in by Councillor Johnson in January of this year, so I will ask him to speak in just a moment. Following that, it was also called in by Councillor Belinda Lovelock-Edwards and Councillor Emma Goodjohn. So once I've asked Councillor Johnson to speak, I will bring in Councillors Goodjohn and Lovelock-Edwards. Councillor Johnson, would you like to come in?
Diolch yn fawr. Thank you, Chair. Just for clarification, I'm speaking English as no interpreter tonight, and also just to confirm that this is a request for consideration, so it's a report rather than a call-in of a cabinet decision. So my name's Councillor Ian Johnson. I represent a ward in the centre of Barry. I'm not a member of this committee, so I have no vote or further voice. But for transparency, I'm a supporter of local football clubs in the area and a vice president at Barry Town. The sports facilities at the Calcutta and Buttrells are located in the north of Barry and naturally have their neighbours, but they're an investment in health and well-being for the whole of the town and the wider community. I've requested this report tonight to update committee about plans for the sites following the decision not to proceed with proposals last year to build changing facilities at the Buttrells. As members who attended last year's site visit will remember, the Calcutta Sports Centre is more than 60 years old and well beyond its usable lifespan. In 2021, the boiler was condemned because of safety concerns. It is a dark and grim building which has barely changed since I first set foot in there, playing back in the 1980s. It is certainly not the modern 21st century building you would expect to be the sporting hub for Wales's largest town. Nor is it a welcoming environment for women's and girls football, which is the main anticipated growth area for sports, particularly following Wales's qualification for this year's European Championships. That's something that also strikes very close to home, as Wales's manager Rhiannon Wilkinson was actually in the Vale of Glamorgan School for a year as a child before moving to Canada, and Barry's Sophie Ingle has been in the Wales national team for more than 15 years until a recent ACL injury. Pardon the pun, but my concern, Chair, is that these issues will again be kicked into the long grass. The proposal for turning the artificial turf pitch into a football hub was made by consultants back in 2012, and I would welcome investment which would allow local football clubs to progress through the Welsh football pyramid system. Facilities which would allow increased women's and veterans overage football to be played in Barry, rather than forcing them to travel to Cardiff. That would be a significant improvement with the appropriate spectator facilities that you would expect and available all year round. Just for context, Halton Road, the main users of the grass so-called barrier pitch of the Calcutta, were unable to play a single home game between the end of November 2023 and mid-April 24 last season. Currently, though, Chair, there also seem to be no particular plans for the Buttrells field site, and I worry that those pitches are being forgotten about for the moment. I shan't comment on other sports, which are not my expertise, but I would be interested to hear the plans for the current Calcutta Sports Centre users while plans set out in the report are progressed. An idea of timescale would also be welcomed. I reserve my right to speak at the end of this discussion. Thank you. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. I will now bring in Councillor Emma Goodjohn and Councillor Belinda Lovelock-Edwards. Which one of you would like to go first? Councillor Lovelock-Edwards.
Thank you, Chair. I've been given the opportunity to speak. I think Councillor Johnson has aptly summed up sort of the current situation, and obviously based on proposals that were put forward last year, we submitted the request for consideration to what was the Healthy Living Scrutiny Committee on the basis that we were keen as ward councillors to ensure that we were aware of what, if any, proposals were being put forward for the site. We were doing that based on all voices of residents, and not just the particular residents that had raised concerns in relation to the sort of the proposed changes and plans, but on the longevity of the site and the fact that there is still a large number of people who use the site for various purposes. And as Councillor Johnson has said, whilst I am not a sports aficionado by any stretch, I do have a son that regularly uses the site for regular football and has done since moving up from the use of the artificial pitches to going across the road to Buttrells. This is a really important sort of report in that sort of we're seeking sort of a consideration to find out from the council if there is any scope for looking outside of the council. We're looking to potential partners to see if there is any opportunity to enable us to secure funding, because we know that as a council we work well in partnership, and obviously that's a key sort of consideration moving forward to secure some prospects for the safeguarding the future of Calcott. Like Councillor Johnson, I reserve the right to come back into the debate if necessary. And I think that's covered all the points that we articulated in the initial request that was made. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Lovelock-Edwards. Councillor Goodjohn, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Chair. I think it's been covered by Belinda, Councillor Lovelock-Edwards. I would like to reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. So now I'm going to bring in Dave Nevitt to answer that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that was a very helpful summary of the report that was requested. The motivation and the reason the original report was brought to Cabinet last year was obviously to increase opportunities for all in terms of physical activity, and obviously to address the situation of the facilities that are currently on offer, which I would agree are not the type of facility in an ideal world we would like to be offering to our residents. I think it's also important to put it in context that although where the Calcott and Buttrells are located is important from a local perspective, the facilities do provide opportunities to participate for residents throughout the Vale of Glamorgan. And anyone who's been involved in local football, the odds are that they will have played at the Buttrells or the Calcott at some point during their sporting careers. And obviously the growth of women and girls football is extremely exciting at the present time. Probably the fastest growing female participation sport in the country. And as Councillor Johnson quite rightly said, with Wales qualifying for the Euros this summer, we expect demand to further increase. To address the specific questions that were asked, the difficulty in terms of providing facilities at the Buttrells comes down to primarily cost. The work that would be required in terms of sort of drainage, particularly to comply with SUDS legislation, would be extremely high. We have been speaking to potential partners as detailed in the report, notably the Football Foundation, who are very keen to see facilities at the Buttrell site, but would be willing to enter into discussions with us in terms of the Colcott site and the arrangements whereby the changing rooms are provided on that side, but the pitches at the Buttrells remain well used. And again, they have indicated in recent discussions that the drainage issues that we are faced with at these locations, again, money could be available for that in the future to address that. In terms of the Colcott site, the artificial turf pitch, we have also had discussions with a couple of key partners, again, the Football Foundation, but also our leisure management contractor, Legacy Leisure. And again, there is some enthusiasm in terms of reinstating a 3G pitch there. As members will be aware, we have two full-size 3G pitches in the immediate area on the school sites, but neither of those particular facilities can provide home facilities for Holton Road and other clubs who aspire to go up the football pyramid because of the requirements that are then placed on teams who wish to play at a higher level. One of those would be the provision of a grandstand, not a large grandstand, but certainly spectator facilities. Again, providing free 3G pitches in quite close proximity could well be a challenge in terms of future funding opportunities. But again, the FA, the Football Foundation, have indicated to us that it is a conversation they would like to have with us, particularly if the new pitch or the reinstated pitch of the Colcott, which was originally Sandfield, but would need to change to a 3G surface, could accommodate higher level league football at some point. In terms of timescales, I appreciate this is the key to the key question that has been asked this evening. And we are concerned about the future of the Colcott site as a whole. If anyone has read the condition survey report on that, it doesn't make for the best of reading under any circumstances. And again, as has been mentioned, is an extremely old facility, being approximately 60 years old, with never the life expectancy of still being here and providing facilities today. In terms of timescales, I can't give specifics in terms of where we are. There are various deadlines in terms of grants. We do need to do some more consultation in terms of the site, and we're eager to do some local consultation, bearing in mind the expressions or the comments that came from the community with the original proposals that were considered. It's important that local needs are taken into account, as well as the needs of the sports that will be provided at these facilities. I hope I've answered the majority, but obviously more than happy to come back in and try and answer any further questions.
Thank you. I can see Councillor Gwyn John would like to speak. Are committee happy for me to bring him in? I see no dissensions. Councillor John?
I'm afraid you've come off screen, Councillor John. Would you mind coming back on again?
Am I on? Okay.
Yes, we can see you now, Councillor.
There we are. I agree with the comments made so far, particularly Councillor Johnson and I share a love for our football across the Vale of Glamorgan. And quite honestly, it is a huge problem that we're facing. Simply, we do not have the money. It was tight in the very beginning when the first report came up, but now time has elapsed and everything is getting higher and higher. And subsequently, to go over to the Buttrells at the moment, it's going to be extremely out of our boundaries. As much as I want to go to the Buttrells with new facilities, which used to be facilities there back in the early 60s, before the sports centre was built. However, it's a big embarrassment that we can't provide toilets over on the Buttrells, and I'm sure that that's been a problem for many, many years. However, I agree what David said. We've talked about this together. there's possibilities for support to build a 3G on the Calcutta side. But certainly, once again, regarding the changing rooms, I don't think we will get this money from any source, really, because what you're doing, you put in money, good money after bad. With the facilities now 62 years old, I mean, quite honestly, it's going to be difficult. And there is a very urgent need in the town of Barry for ladies' facilities. Ladies' football, as been said already, is going to be growing and growing, particularly, hopefully, with the Euros this year. So it's leaving us with a real big headache. And we're prepared tonight to listen to your recommendations. At the same time, we've drawn up these recommendations, and hopefully we would have your support tonight to take these to Cabinet and progress from there. But it's a very difficult task facing us, as much as I would like to see everything fall into place. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor John. Do committee members have any comments? Councillor Hennessy?
Yeah, this is particularly to David. As David knows, there is a covenant on the section of the Calcutta Sports Centre. Are we saying, if we propose to do this, that this council is willing to break a covenant, what was introduced in 1963 from funding given to them by Billy Butlins?
I think the covenant that's being referred to is the Fields in Trust covenant. From previous discussions that we've had with Fields in Trust, their main motivation is to ensure that there are quality physical activity facilities available to the residents of the Vale of Glamorgan. The covenant that is in place for the sports centre is quite unique in terms of Fields in Trust, because it's actually the only one for the building and doesn't feature in terms of the grounds, although obviously, we would like to extend that covenant at some point in the future to include grounds, and I think that's the negotiation that would take place with Fields in Trust, whereby we would be protecting the playing surfaces in the future. Obviously, by breaking any covenant, that would require detailed discussions with them. But what we're actually proposing in terms of the report is to replace the existing changing rooms with new changing rooms. Clearly, the sort of figures and the money that we've mentioned in the report wouldn't be sufficient, as Councillor John said, in terms of grants, and we would need additional funding to be able to do that. And obviously, that's something that is being investigated at the current time. But in terms of breaking the covenant, I don't believe it's in the way that is being projected. I believe it is to increase the opportunities, not to decrease physical activity opportunities.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you, Councillor Hennessy. Any other members of the committee have any comments on this? If not, I'll go back to Councillor Johnson. Councillor Johnson, do you want to come back in on this?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Dave Nevitt and Councillor John for their comments. I mean, I think the recommendations made in tonight's report, I think are sensible, and they relate obviously to the artificial turf pitch and the facilities at the Calcutta side. I think it remains incumbent upon council as a whole to consider the future generations' well-being act and the need to provide facilities of quality for current and future residents of Barry and the wider community of the Vale of Glamorgan. The facilities that we have are 60 years old, as has been said, and they are not the quality that you would expect for a quarter of the way through the 21st century. Money is tight. Money has always been tight. Outdoor changing facilities are not glamorous, and they are, I think, probably fall a long way down the pecking order behind the work that perhaps goes on at the facilities which are in daily use, such as our leisure centres, compared to those which are used far less frequently, because that's the nature of these spaces. So I'm happy to see a level of progress that's included within the recommendations here. However, I think it's important, the football-related metaphor, to keep our eye on the ball as we go forward and see actual development, because I think, given the amount of time that has been spent pointing to the changing rooms at the Calcutta falling into this state of disrepair, it feels like it has been literally decades that people have been pointing to this and saying there's a need for change, and that change still hasn't happened. So however that happens, I'd be grateful to see support for that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Lovelock-Edwards, would you like to come back in now?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thanks to Dave and to Councillor John for their sort of open, honest, and transparent sort of verbal report, in addition to the written one that Dave has put forward. I think that we are dealing with the realism here of an old and decrepit building. Hence the reason why the proposals were put forward in genuine sort of good faith of trying to sort of to ensure that future generations of women, girls, and don't forget those with a disability who are currently prevented from accessing types of sport across Calcutta and Buttrell at this present time are given an opportunity, an equal and fair fighting chance. And so these recommendations are fair, are reasonable, and sort of I'm sure I speak on behalf of my fellow councillor Emma Goodjohn when we as ward councillors also know the situation is that if funding from external sources is not available, then we ask for sort of us to be kept in sort of in the loop in terms of what happens sort of next. So yeah, nothing further to add, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Goodjohn, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to echo Councillor Lovelock-Edwards' comments. I think she's covered it there. I think it's difficult with the site, with the Calcott and the Buttrells being so far apart from each other. It's a long way from one having changing rooms at one end or the other. It's a very difficult site. But thank you very much to Dave and to Councillor John for the recommendations, and hopefully we can move forward from that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see nobody else indicating a request to speak, so I will go to the recommendations, and the recommendations are that the first one is that both the member request for consideration and the subsequent report be noted. The second is that it be recommended to Cabinet that discussions progress with key partners and potential funding opportunities with the aim of providing quality facilities in the long term at the site. And the third is that Cabinet be requested to give approval for a no obligation expression of interest to be submitted to the Cymru Football Foundation in relation to investigations for developing the surplus artificial turf pitch at the site into a 3G facility, and to provide new changing rooms on the existing Calcutta site, with the understanding that other considerations regarding the use of the area in the long term also require evaluation. Are committee happy to accept those recommendations? Can I have a proposer and a seconder, please? Councillor Lovelock-Edwards. Are you proposing?
Yes, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sally Hanks, are you seconding?
I am, Chair.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So thank you to Dave for that report, and thank you everyone who has taken part in the discussions. We will now move on to agenda item 6, which is the social care record system. If you'd like to come in, Lance, thank you.
Sorry. See, things weren't working there. Okay, lovely, thank you. This report is a follow-up report to the one that was brought to Healthy Living and Social Care Committee in October 2024. At that point, we were about to procure a system to replace the WICIS system, which essentially manages the care records of the residents that we support across the Vale of Glamorgan. Obviously, since that time, we have made the procurement, and we've also highlighted at that time issues, I suppose, with gaining funding. We were hopeful to get Welsh Government funding and support for it as well. What exists, I suppose, in terms of oversight arrangements is that we, following agreement from Cabinet, are completed the procurement in a partnership with the Cumtaf Maganog region, which essentially is Merthyr Tydfil, Rhondda Cynon Taf and Bridgend County Councils. So we procured together, but that I suppose regional cluster arrangement sits under a national initiative that has been supported very much by WLGA in terms of us being able to procure the systems. Those who were involved previously will probably recall that there were significant delays in getting out to procurement, not through any fault of our own or WLGA, but there had been a significant delay while Digital Healthcare Wales were trying to coordinate the local authorities, social care departments to get out into procurement. So we now find ourselves, I suppose, in the situation more positively that we have completed that. The contract was awarded to an organisation called the Access Group. Their product is called Mosaic, and we are already working with them now in terms of developing the system for our needs. So we have a number of workshops taking place with staff across the directorate to make sure that we have this in place. And I suppose the other thing that is of significant note is that for year zero, and that's 24-25, so last financial year, Welsh Government allocated some money to WLGA, who have in turn been distributing it to local authorities. And I refer to an amount in 5.3, which was the maximum we could hope to receive. And I've had a grant award letter, actually, I believe it was today or yesterday, indicating that the Vale of Glamorgan for last year will receive £336,000. So less than it says in the letter, in the report. And I think that's probably it, but I'm obviously here to take any questions. I am conscious that a number of colleagues who would be available to support me to do that aren't able to be with me this evening. So if I'm unable to answer any questions, then I will happily look into them and get back to people.
Thank you very much, Lance. Do we have any questions? Councillor Thomas?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Lance, for the clear explanation of what's going on. As a former member of the former Healthy Living and Social Care Committee, we've discussed this matter a number of times, and the need for getting on with it, basically, because the end date for the present system is, I believe, January of next year. So we need to get this up and running pretty quickly. It had the full support of the Healthy Living and Social Care Committee at that time, and I move officers' recommendations at this time, please.
Councillor Lloyd Selby.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you for taking us through it, Lance. And as for Councillor Thomas, I was a member of the committee, the previous committee that considered this report on a number of occasions. Just a couple of questions from me to clarify exactly where we are, Lance, if I may. First of all, I note that the project plan is still only in draft form, so it would be helpful to understand what the delays are in terms of finalising that. And secondly, I note that quite rightly, the report recognises the need potentially for mitigations if there are delays in actually getting the new system across the line when WICUS is no more. And I think it would be helpful for the committee to understand how mature the preparations are to ensure that as far as possible there is a smooth transition. Thank you.
Okay, am I right to come in there, Chair?
Yes, I was just trying to call you in, but my button wouldn't work.
Okay, thank you. I didn't want to jump the gun. Yes, I suppose I know I mentioned it, but we are in a nationally led approach, which I think is really very helpful. There are a number of challenges, I suppose, with getting certain elements in the detail of all parts of the plan organised. We're working through those. So there are issues like the extraction of the data, migrating it onto the new system, and so on. So there's still some areas that haven't yet been finalised, and so therefore we can't end up working out an exact date for when everything would happen. I think what we have been able to start, though, as I said, really is that work with the access group in terms of developing the system to make sure that it fits and works for us in the Vale and in our cluster. So yeah, I wish everything was nailed down and could be definitely accurate, but I suppose what I can say is that we're working, with 17 other local authorities. There are 18 of us in terms of implementation, and my expectation is that we will be, managing any risks collectively and working together in terms of timescales as well. So in terms of the governance for it, as I said, we have I didn't say we have a Vale project group. We have a regional project that has principally been overseeing the procurement to date. There is then what we call the SRO board, which is the directors of social services and the heads of digital across Wales. And then sitting above that is a social care programme board that is chaired by the chief executive of Torvine Council. And I suppose ultimately that's probably the top end of our governance chart. Although that reports to a sponsoring group in Welsh Government that is yet to be set up.
Can I just come back in very quickly on that, Chair?
I was just going to ask if you wanted to come back, yes.
If I may, thank you. Thank you, Lance. Really helpful. There's clearly a huge amount of work happening, and I'm aware that there has been for a significant amount of time in terms of making sure that we do get this new system over the line. If I can just make a request, Chair, that we continue to receive update reports, and in particular, it would be very helpful if any future reports could flag up whether or not we're actually close to needing to start implementing any of the mitigations that are being prepared. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lloyd-Selby. Councillor Lovelock-Edwards.
Thank you, Chair. It's a question in a similar vein. And like Councillor Lloyd-Selby, I was hoping that we could receive regular updates, especially for someone who, like myself, who's coming into sort of this element of scrutiny, not having been involved in the previous meetings. It was just one question with regards to the 5.3, Lance, and it's about sort of do we know when WLGA will make its determination on costs, and are we, is there a timeline around this? That's all. Thank you.
Lance, if you'd like to come back in.
Yeah, and perhaps I should have explained myself earlier. What the process has been is that the Vale has had to submit already details regarding the areas that it thinks it can justify against an indicative sum. We've done that, and that's what has led to the figure that I quoted earlier, £336,000. That I had a grant award letter for either today or yesterday. Sorry, the two are blended in, even though it's a bank holiday. So I think we should be getting the money as soon as possible. What we don't have, though, is any funding at all agreed from Welsh Government for 25-26. So I have retrospective funding for last year at the moment.
Thank you, Lance. Does anybody else wish to speak? I see no hands up. Now, there are 3 recommendations for this, but we've also had a request from both Councillor Lloyd Selby and Councillor Lovelock Edwards that we receive further updates. So with committee's blessing, I'd like to add that as a 4th recommendation. A committee happy for me to do so. Lance?
I just wonder whether it may be, I'm happy to do a report at an appropriate time, that it may be that we have information that at a particular point we're not able to put into the public domain, perhaps because it's sensitive to the organisations we're working with. I wouldn't want to hold back from members. So I just wonder whether a recommendation could be a little bit broader. Sorry, I know you haven't said it yet, but just if you could keep it broad so that I'm able to provide information to members rather than necessarily bring a report with that detail.
That's a very good point, Lance. Thank you. Okay, so Councillor Lloyd Selby. Councillor Lloyd Selby, we can't hear you.
Yeah, since I was a committee member that requested that update, I think that makes absolute sense. I certainly don't want to constrain officers or create more work unnecessarily. And if it's more helpful to take a different approach, then I would support that. So I think, the director's suggestion that the recommendation is amended for officers to ensure that committee members are kept informed as appropriate of progress, and in particular advised whether or not there are any concerns about achieving the required deadlines. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lloyd Selby. I would agree with that. Okay, so the Amy?
Thank you, Chair. It's just a very quick one. Obviously, we've established the wording for the 4th recommendation. Can I just, for the sake of the minutes, confirm that Councillor Lovelock Edwards is happy to second that as reworded?
Happy to. Thank you, Amy.
Okay, so we've got that recommendation. The first one is that the work being undertaken to implement the new social care system be noted. That the second one is that the challenging timescale for completion of the implementation and the potential risk in this not being achieved be noted. The third, that the financial position regarding the implementation be noted. And the 4th, Amy, I'm sorry, I don't remember the wording for that one. That's
okay, Chair, no problem. That's what I'm here for.
Couldn't write it down fast enough.
yeah. I was making a note there, but obviously I can confirm the wording with yourself exactly following the meeting. But the essence of the recommendation is that the committee be further informed on progress in relation to the implementation, and as deemed appropriate. At a later date, and obviously as an aside, Chair, we'll obviously have the for information process available to the committee, and maybe it would be appropriate to use that route for this item.
Yes.
And also, sorry,
Thank
just
you,
to add, there
Amy.
will be emphasis on that recommendation as well as to whether there is any considerations being put in place for possible mitigations if we're not able to reach the final deadline. But I will word that appropriately for you, Chair, but that's the essence of that.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Amy. Are committee happy to go with these recommendations? Councillor Lloyd-Selby?
Happy to move the recommendations, Chair.
Yes. Okay, I will happily second those. Yes, with updates, I will fully respect the officer's decision in the format that we receive that, considering there may be some information that that should not go into the public domain purely because of confidentiality, etc. So thank you very much. I'm going to go to agenda item 7 now, which is the performance evaluation inspection of Vale of Glamorgan Social Services update. Lance, welcome back.
Thank you. I guess for new members to, I guess we're all new members to this committee, but for people who haven't been to the previous Healthy Living and Social Care Committee, this report followed an inspection that was completed by Care Inspectorate Wales in January 2023. We provided an update to that committee in May 2024 regarding the areas of improvement that Care Inspectorate Wales have found. Their report about the standard of social services in Vale of Glamorgan was very positive, and I think inevitably, though, with all of these reports, you do get areas which require further development and improvement. They're not necessarily neat in terms of developing actions for them. Some of them are perhaps a narrative in terms of some of the things that they found. That said, as a directorate, we thought it was important to develop actions that would make sure that we responded to those areas of improvement. And this is the second report. The reason we have a second report is when we brought it approximately a year ago, there were some areas that we hadn't quite finished. So what we have at the appendix is an update in terms of all of the areas for improvement and the actions that we've taken in terms of making progress against them. I'm pleased to be able to say that they are now all complete, albeit some of them clearly, given what I said earlier, do represent ongoing work. As I said earlier, it's half term. I am short of colleagues on the call today, so if there are any issues that I'm unable to respond to, although Jason, the Head of Adult Services, is here as well, then I would happily get back to members. So, anyway.
I'm afraid you're off screen, Chair.
Sorry, I do apologise. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Thomas?
Not so much a question, more a comment. Certainly the previous report that went to Healthy Living and Social Care Committee had left some uncompleted actions that was of concern to the members of that committee, and I'm delighted to note that that those actions are now completed in terms of what was being requested. Although, as Lance has pointed out, there are still some ongoing work with those with various ones of them that are almost living document type things where they are things which are constantly being improved and updated and made better. So I just wanted to comment that on my feelings of pleasure that this has actually been done. Thank you very much, Lance, and your team.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Lynch-Wilson.
Again, a comment, probably more than a question. Just lovely to see you're taking on board improvements, and you know that you're not resting on your laurels and you're carrying on with the improvements. I would say that if you put forward a perfect report with nothing to do, I would be very suspicious of that report, because having worked in social care now for 9 years, there's always something to do, there's always improvements, and I can say that the things that are carrying on with the council have made improvements out there in the real world, in the social care world. Things getting people out of hospital into care homes is now a lot faster, far faster than it used to be. Not perfect, nothing is ever perfect, but as I said, it's fantastic that nobody is resting on their laurels. They carry on with the improvements. So just a comment, well done, keep up the good work, and long may it continue.
Thank you, Councillor Lynch-Wilson. Councillor Lloyd-Selby.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for taking us through that, Lance. And I echo what Councillor Thomas has said. It's really good to see that all the actions have been addressed, and I'm sure all the recommendations have been addressed, and I'm sure there's been a huge amount of hard work from the department that I know is under significant pressure to achieve that. So my question is, a number of the responses to recommendations have been about reviewing existing processes. Reviewing them is one thing, strengthening arrangements is another. Actually making sure that improves outcomes is obviously something different. So what does the department have in place to ensure that the outcomes of the actions that have been taken are actually having a positive effect? How is that being monitored?
Lance?
I think I'd probably have to go through every action area in order to probably draw out how we would provide monitoring in those areas. But I suppose principally the process that we have in terms of quality assurance, which was one of the issues that came up in the inspection, that's probably what's giving us the vast majority of assurance that the actions that we're taking and the work that we do is having an impact. I think there are parts of it where, I think supervision is within here as well. We are following up the effectiveness of, the numbers of supervisions that have happened across the service with each manager. So we're reporting on that regularly. And I think that's probably something that is happening across the board with these actions. So, much better performance framework, a quality assurance framework that albeit new, is now being used and giving us that feedback. I mean, ultimately, I suppose the probably the next report in committee's papers this evening probably is where you would expect to see the biggest difference in terms of what's actually happening, because it contains things like an assessment of complaints, compliments, and so on. So, and a lot of the work that we do in terms of service user feedback. So, we try and focus that activity, but we try to make sure that we get some feedback from users of our services. So it is really hard because some of these areas for improvement are a little bit ambiguous, I guess, or aren't succinct and clear. They're not smart actions. I suppose we've had to turn them into those. So, yeah, sorry, I'm giving a bit of a fudge answer, it feels, but I think there's no neat response to your question.
Councillor Lloyd-Selby, you wanted to come back in?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, absolutely understand the complexity of what you're describing, Lance. I think what I take from that is reassurance that there is an expectation that outcomes will be improved for residents where that's required, and that across those various recommendations there are steps in place to monitor progress. And I look forward to seeing that reflected in future reports that come before committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any others wishing to speak? Okay, I see no more hands raised. So with that, I will go to the recommendation. The recommendation is that the progress against the identified areas of improvement developed by Care Inspectorate Wales be noted. Committee happy with that? Councillor Lloyd-Selby? Can't hear you, Councillor Lloyd-Selby.
Happy to note. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? If not, I will second. Okay, I will second. So thank you for that. We will now go on to agenda on item 8, which again is Lance, and that is the Social Services Director's Report Challenge version.
Okay, thank you. I'll just do a little bit of an introduction to what this report is, if that's okay. So we, every year in social services, the director is required to do a self-assessment. And what we try and do is make sure that we engage with as many people as possible. And so one of the things that we do is put together a challenge version that we try and issue this time of year in order to gain comments and feedback. And I suppose we launched that today and this evening really as part of doing that through Scrutiny Committee. But the report will go far and wide. It will go to a wide range of stakeholders and users and carers and give them an opportunity to comment on what we've said. So I think probably the first thing to say really is that there has been a format change in terms of the director's report. Welsh Government have created some changes, and I think that's probably described in paragraph 2.2. And I think principally 6 wellbeing outcomes have been replaced by 8 high-level quality standards, and those 8 standards are reported under 4 headings that you'll see under within the report. Clearly, as a bit of a transition, I have to move from one year to the next, and so items that we had or priorities that we put under the wellbeing outcomes are now being reported under those 4 headings. So in some cases you may think, oh, why has he put that there? It is a little bit random because they're not necessarily a neat fit, but it is about catching us up. Looking forward to next year, I think they are in the right place. So I think that's positive. The other thing, I suppose, with the timing of this report, I think we've managed to achieve greater alignment with the council's corporate planning and directorate planning mechanisms. And so the priorities that you'll see within this report are actually areas of the directorate's plan. So they're not new actions because they have been considered only very recently. I think the other thing to say is that you'll also probably in the coming months be getting a self-assessment for social services. We primarily build that around the director's report, but they follow a different assessment process. So 6 themes, which are different to the old director's report, 6 wellbeing outcomes, and obviously different to the new 8 quality standards. If you're struggling to keep up, then please bear with me. It is very confusing, and it is something that, in terms of trying to deal with this transition year has been complicated, but hopefully we have got to a report that is accessible and readable. I think the other thing really to note is that there were reports that previously Healthy Living and Social Care Scrutiny Committee used to like to see, things like reports on compliments and complaints. I mentioned that earlier. They now sit within the director's report, so they're not reported separately. So I think it's a large report, but it's probably the most comprehensive report that you get in social services that describes the work that we do and where we feel we are at in terms of progress. So I think probably what makes sense is I talk us through the report itself. So you'll see it has challenge version written all the way through it. The eagle-eyed of you may have noticed that there's a comment at the end. That's because I am going to add a link into the report that we've just looked at. So one of the changes in terms of format this year is that they are more open to us using links to other reports. So I thought it was important that we, within the director's report, showed the impact that we've made against the Care Inspectorate Wales areas for improvement. So that's a direct link, and I was waiting for the link in order to add that. So in terms of an introduction, I think there is something in terms of how the service is divided. So we have an adult services section, children and young people section, and a resource management and safeguarding section, which probably does most of the commissioning, but and safeguarding, as you would expect, and performance management, but also oversees our internal care homes. So I also try and pull out through the report some of the key achievements, and that these things won't be new to members of Healthy Living and Social Care Scrutiny Committee, but we have seen significant and sustained improved access to service. We are also supporting more people more quickly than ever before. So significant positives in terms of that front. But with that, as you would expect, a correlating challenge around how we deal with that rising demand, associated workforce pressures, ensuring we have sufficient care staff, social work staff, and so on, and associated financial constraints with supporting more people with more care than ever before. The report also talks about some of the workforce issues and some of the changes that we've made. I've already mentioned, albeit through the last report, I guess, the introduction of the quality assurance framework, the new supervision policy, and I suppose the ongoing recruitment and retention. And one of the, or a couple of the significant ongoing bits of work in terms of relation to workforce relate to us trying to implement the ADSS Cymru recommendations for eliminating racism in social care, and also exploring new office space for adult services. So the other, I think I mentioned the financial service resources, but there's a part of the report that summarises that as well, and the challenges we have in terms of looking forward. You'll see there that we have committed to delivering £3.6 million worth of savings. That's within this financial year, albeit the report in front of you is a backward-looking report. And we don't see that those budgetary challenges are going away anytime soon. So we have to continue to deliver that savings challenge. And I think some of those savings are highlighted within the report in terms of some of the really challenging areas. The report also gives a bit of detail about what we spend where. So, significantly our budget is spent in adult services, so 73 million. Children and young people services is nearly 25 million, and resource management and safeguarding is close to 9 million. The report also goes through a number of parts of activity data, and you'll see there are a number of graphs there where we could have an adults and children's graph next to each other. We have. That's not always possible because things are measured differently, but the adults graphs are in green and the children's graphs are in blue. And you'll see, we've tried to include a number of years data so that people could see where those things are part of ongoing trends. Generally, what you'll see is that the trend that I've just mentioned is things are continuing to increase in terms of volumes across almost every indicator. I think we also get then probably into the meat of the report and the 4 principal sections. So there's one about people, and I think some of the areas that we talked about in the last areas for improvement from CIW are mentioned within here, but other things committee had been interested in and wanted to hear more about as well get a clear focus within the report as well. So dementia friendly communities program, support for unpaid carers, you'll see that within this report as well. And then I think, other than performance information, which you'll see is kind of littered throughout the report, we also complete a number of consultations. Again, something I referenced earlier in response to Councillor Lloyd-Selby's query. But these consultations focus in particular areas and provide provide high levels of reassurance given the overwhelmingly positive responses that we get in terms of how our services are perceived by those who receive them. So there are within the people section, some are consultation on adult day services and Flying Start. And again, I suppose some people data there really about care and support via direct payments. Direct payments give us a real opportunity, or give individuals a real opportunity to have control over their care arrangements. Although I should say that the model we have for delivering domiciliary care in the Vale does a good job of that as well, which I think is probably why we don't have as much of a growth in that, because people are able to have significant levels of control with less bureaucratic burden. So if they opt for our domiciliary care model, so I can't draw too much from that. I think the next one really is in prevention. It's always really difficult to do when we are dealing with such high demand, but we also know it helps mitigate some of that demand. So a lot of work going on in there. And again, I suppose it refers to some of that consultation work. So again, focus on those receiving direct payments. Again, more data within the graphs, so trying where possible to show them side by side, as I mentioned. I've lost my page, it just moved. And then it moves on to partnerships and integration. We obviously work very closely with our various partners, principally health services, but we work very closely with the police in the third sector and social enterprise and other local authorities where relevant. But again, a bit more detail in terms of some of those bits of feedback. So another consultation that was completed was for users of the Vale Community Resource Service. So that's a service that supports people when they've come into some difficulty and may need care. Often they may have gone into hospital, had some treatment and need to come out. And so Community Resource Service helps put people back onto their feet and gets working with them and really helps them to back to independence, rather than us going straight in with providing a long-term care package, which they obviously do need short-term, but potentially would end up receiving for a longer time than they actually needed it. We've also done a consultation with the locality mental health team. And I think this is probably also when the data doesn't so easily start to correlate between adults and children. So you'll see data around strategy meetings for children and the numbers there. There isn't really an adult's equivalent of that, but we do have obviously reports in terms of where we think adults may be at risk, and again, I suppose alongside most of them, you'll see sustained increases. And then the last of the 4 sections is well-being, and very much talking about protection, adult protection, and child protection, and also really how we can help people to work with their well-being. And I think that's really where I think we're building on sustained approaches in terms of working with people on the outcomes that they want, and giving them more and more control over their own arrangements. So there's a section regarding that, and I think you'll see a number of couple of areas there in terms of consultation, and we've also completed a recruitment and retention consultation, and also following supervision key information. So this is where we can really monitor how supervision is happening and whether people are having it regularly and on time. So there's lots for me to go through, so I'm trying to go through it quickly. There's lots of work that we do in relation to providing information to our residents as well, and so we've included that here. There's a website called Dewis Wales. There's a link to it in the report here, which I would advise any new members, if they haven't looked at, to take a look at, because it contains lots of details of lots of services that are available in the Vale of Glamorgan, which would normally be where we would direct people to is a way of potentially avoiding coming into statutory services if they can. Obviously, if they do need our help, then we will become involved with them. But some really nice examples and a few pictures there in terms of some of that work. I think there's a bit more in terms of some of the other information. I think I mentioned the reports into racism. We have now included those within our social services reshaping action plan, and we'll be looking forward to delivering against those. There's a section on inspection and reviews, and you'll see that the inspection that we just talked about was a whole Vale social services inspection. There are others that take place across the Vale. So all 4 of our residential homes received positive inspections, and there are a number of thematic or regional inspections that are also referred to in that section that are of relevance to us. We then move on to complaints and representations and compliments, and I think it's pleasing to see that we had 184 compliments in the last year, and we've included some of them to show really the type of things that we hear about our services. It would be remiss of me not to point out that we also have lots of complaints as well. So we have 117 complaints, 77 of those were complaints, 117 were contacts. So what we tend to do is, if we can resolve something instantly, then we don't consider that to be a complaint. That's just somebody contacting us with an issue that they obviously were initially not happy with. But we've managed to resolve quickly. And then you see towards the end of that some analysis really in terms of what those complaints were about, and the various departments that they happen within. And then we try and look at what lessons we can learn. And I think probably in what the 2 big ones really was around communication, and I think we're aware that there's going to be a customer charter, and we'll be clear that we are making sure we're learning from that and that customer experience. And the other one is really about people being unhappy with the cost of services, or and having to pay for those services. And there's some inevitability, I think, probably to that featuring within our complaints. So you'll also see that we are updating our direct payment policy, which was an action following a stage 2 complaint. So I think, I suppose in summary, the whole report's really, I think we've made a number of improvements this year. I think that's probably been highlighted throughout this evening's reports, actually, and probably that it should be noted that that's in the context of us supporting more people than ever before. And that doesn't come without a cost, both financial and in terms of challenges to the service in terms of us delivering it. But I am conscious I've talked for a long time, and I suspect members will have questions. Just before I go to that, or come back to you, Chair, I obviously, as I said at the beginning, this is a challenge version of the report. Previously, the comments from committee have been very helpful in terms of me reviewing and, where possible, making changes to that report in time for the final version. I think the closing date that we have for those comments is the beginning of July, and then the final version would go to Cabinet. So I'm happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you very much, Lance. Do committee have any questions or comments? Councillor Lynch-Wilson.
Thank you for a very extensive and thorough report. Lots and lots of things to digest and work through. Mostly positive things, because things have got come along, and the thorough way I think that things are now being tackled. It's nice to see the graphs between the children and adults, because where it's possible, because it's nice to see how they compare. So I like that part in the report. I also like well, it's just so extensive, and you've covered everything. It's interesting to obviously note the things that have gone up most with the cost of living is wages and food and fuel, and those are the things that cost them, that social care relies on. So to actually come anywhere when you're looking at budgets is just, I mean, it would frighten me to death, I think, to have to work out a budget when everything that you're dealing with just goes through the roof. So just basically thank you for your hard work, and it's such an I mean, it's interesting for me, obviously, because I work in the thing, and it's hard to describe how hard it is to get people to work in health and social care. Social care is just we retain staff in where I work, but it's so difficult, and we are all getting older, and just nobody seems to want to actually come and work with us. So if we could get over that hurdle, that would be a good start. I don't know where we'd start or what we're going to do, but actually getting people into the jobs, into employment would be fantastic, because as I said, it's very difficult to get people to work.
Thank you, Councillor Lynch-Wilson. Councillor Hanks.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your report, Lance. I was just wanting to quickly ask, for the coming year, you'd safely like to reduce the numbers of looked after children. I just wondered what measures you were putting in place to do that, please.
Lance, go ahead, but just 2 seconds. Councillor Lynch-Wilson, you still have your hand up? Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Lance. Thank you.
I'm sure if Rachel Evans, the head of Children's Services, was here, she'd be able to elaborate further. But I think there are a number of things that we are working on that we are hoping will have that impact. And I suppose one is helping children to safely leave care arrangements. So particularly as they become older and I guess progress into adulthood, we want to continue to provide safe support for them, but hopefully in a way that would mean that they didn't need to be formally looked after. And I think the other part really is and I think it may have been mentioned in one part of the report in terms of reshaping services, but we are looking at how we can work with mothers pre-birth to try and provide more intensive support so that they are more likely to be able to stay together as families. So a number of different approaches. Obviously, we need to make sure that our practice is consistent across the board as well. But there's not one thing, I think, in terms of us trying to make that overall number reduce. I think what we are conscious of is that since the pandemic, that number has increased and has continued to increase. So while that almost certainly is for a number of societal factors outside of our control, I think we need to try and address some of those, but also to make sure that we can continue to operate safely. We're not planning to stop looking after children that we shouldn't be. That's not it, but there is something about us trying to provide more supportive mechanisms where we can.
Thank you.
Councillor Lloyd-Selby.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for taking us through the report, Lance. As the chair of another scrutiny committee, I've taken part in kind of the challenge process, and it looks very different in terms of this report. So in terms of the self-evaluation, the approach that I think has been taken elsewhere is a kind of scoring. In this area, we think that our performance is excellent. Is this one is good? Is this one is fair? And then there are indications of trend. Is that an improvement on last year? Is it the same? Or has there been any backward steps? And I struggle to get that from this report. So as I say, lots and lots of data, lots of evidence, but I'm not seeing that summary of how well you think the department is performing against those key themes. And I'm just wondering why a different approach has been taken in this report.
Go ahead, Lance.
Okay, the challenge process for this, and I guess the reports that you're probably thinking of, the corporate self-assessments that I referred to in my introduction. So that process is different, and that will still happen, I suppose, for social services. So we will still have to rank ourselves against the areas that are within that report, albeit separately. That's not a statutory requirement within the guidance for the director's report. So that's why it isn't in there. I'm not sure how helpful it is for me to say, good, very good, poor, average, whatever. I think that's probably not a particularly helpful measure. I would rather tell people the numbers and tell people the trend versus what it happened last year, and then determine whether that results in the direction being the right one and the trajectory going where we want it to. I think, I have tried to summarise at the end in terms of, I think probably what are really key areas in terms of our improved responsiveness. You'll see throughout the reports and those graphs, by and large, improved performance. And so I think that's probably more important. We're not expected to do a rating. So within this context, I haven't. Within the corporate self-assessment, I am required to do a rating, and that's 6 different themes to the 8 outcomes I have here. So it is a bit disappointing that there is quite a lot of duplication and overlap, but fortunately I've worked really well with the corporate centre to try and minimise that as much as possible.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I'll take another look through the report, Lance, and come back to you with any specifics if I may. Thank you.
Thank you both. Do we have anyone else wishing to speak? I see no hands up, so I will go to the recommendations. The recommendation is that the content of the appended director's report be noted. And there's a second one regarding changes to the director's annual report, apart from the link that Lance has already mentioned. I'll bring Amy in. Amy?
Sorry, Chair, I think I've preempted what you were about to say, but you obviously were mentioning about the fact that Lance is taking in the link, but I just wanted to say that I hadn't formally recorded any formal changes because it was more commentary this evening, if the committee are happy with that.
That is what I was about to say, basically. Apart from the link that Lance has, I haven't really heard any proposed changes. So are committee happy to go with the recommendations? Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Hanks?
Yeah, happy to propose and do that, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And I will second that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Lance. You've very much been the star of the show tonight, but now you can sit back and relax. Thank you for your attendance tonight and for your very informative introductions. Thank you. Please thank your team as well. Agenda item 9, Amy has preempted me, is the Forward Work Programme. So go ahead, Amy, take it away.
Thank you very much, Chair and Committee. So I am conscious of the fact that many of the members who are online this evening have already been presented with forward work programmes for other scrutiny committees that they may sit on. And I do appreciate that the committee have read the report in advance of the meeting. So if I may, Chair, I would like to just very quickly point out the various sections of the forward work programme that is attached in the report for the committee's consideration. You will see the corporate plan objectives and cabinet members and directors and contact information that is available and relevant to this committee. There are 2 sections highlighted within the forward work programme that I'm kindly asking for suggestions from committee members this evening. One being any possible co-opted memberships that the committee feel would benefit this committee. And then also any topics for task and finish working groups that the committee would like me to take forward and to take into a scoping exercise and to bring back for the committee's consideration and agreement at the July meeting. So those are highlighted in that peach colour there on the pages that I'm referring to. And you'll see that the document itself is structured to reflect now the fact that we have, with the new scrutiny proposals, we have 3 forms of scrutiny: the investigative, task and finish, proposal, which would be our committee meetings in this sense, and then briefings, which we are for information and member briefings. Obviously, this committee now under the new proposals has taken all of the responsibilities of what was the Healthy Living and Social Care Scrutiny Committee, but also inherited some of the responsibilities of what was the Homes and Safe Communities Scrutiny Committee. So the remit of the committee has changed slightly. And the document that's before committee reflects that, and the fact that we are inheriting some items that have come over into the programme. As always, Chair, and as has always been the case, the forward work programmes for the committees are rolling historical documents that are continuously changing and will be closely monitored by myself as the officer dedicated to the committee, but also as yourself as Chair. And there's information with relation to which reports are sitting under which section of each type of scrutiny now. The last thing that 2 points I would like to point out that are unique to this committee. So you'll see within the body of the covering report, if I could draw the committee's attention to, if I just find the paragraphs for you, to paragraphs 2.10 and 2.11, which are unique to this particular committee. So this Live Well Scrutiny Committee has inherited the Leisure Management Contract Working Group, which currently consists of 6 elected members from the previous Healthy Living and Social Care Scrutiny Committee. So you'll see that one of the recommendations this evening, which is unique to this committee, is to kindly reappoint those 6 seats onto the working group. And then the second unique point for this committee is the committee has inherited a budget working group that also consisted of 6 elected members from the previous Healthy Living and Social Care Scrutiny Committee, not subject to political balance. But obviously, with the establishment of the Performance Joint Scrutiny Committee and the increased task and finish elements of the new scrutiny function for the council, it is deemed appropriate that that working group be disbanded because the same work will be happening elsewhere under the new proposals. So that's paragraph 2.10 and 2.11, Chair, and also reflected in the recommendations for the report. So obviously I welcome any comments and any suggestions that the committee have moving forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Amy. Okay. Where would you like to start? Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, on Amy's last 2 points about the 2 working groups that we had going on, certainly she makes a great deal of sense in talking about the budget working group and that the work of that group now is going to be carrying on elsewhere. And I'm happy with her suggestions for the Leisure Centre Working Group. I was previously a member of that, and I'm happy to remain a member of that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Sorry, I've just lost my page here. So we have the membership of the working group for the leisure. It was the chair, Councillor Thomas, who has agreed to stay on, Councillor Cowp, Councillor Godfrey, Councillor Cave, Councillor Norman, Councillor Stallard and Councillor Lynch-Wilson. Of those members that are still on the committee, who would like to remain on there? Is there anybody that would like to come off it that is on the committee? Amy, we can't hear you.
I'm sorry, Chair. Just to point out for your benefit that Councillor Cave, who was with us earlier this evening, has now left the meeting.
Okay.
She was a previous member of the group. So just in obviously to your answer to your direct question there, if anybody'd like to remain, obviously we aren't able to get Councillor Cave's opinion on that at the moment.
Okay. Okay, so regarding Let's think now. May I ask, Amy, that you send Councillor Cave an email asking if she would like to stay on there?
Yes, Chair, if that I can absolutely do that for you. So with your permission and obviously Councillor Lovelock Edwards' permission as well as Vice Chair, that would be 2 of the automatic seats. And then the third then would be taken up by Councillor Neil Thomas. If Councillor Lynch-Wilson, who is still on the line with us, would like to indicate if she's happy to remain, that would be a 4th recurrent seat. And therefore that would just be a remaining 2, one of which I can inquire for Councillor Cave. And then in which case you could take one further suggestion from the committee this evening, if you're minded to do so.
Yes, please. Councillor Lynch-Wilson?
I'm happy to remain, if possible.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we would need another person from this committee. Can I have a volunteer? Councillor Hennessy?
Yeah, if no one else wants to, I'll volunteer.
Thank you. So subject to Councillor Cave, agreement or disagreement to stay on the committee, I think we've filled those seats now, haven't we, Amy? And if Councillor Cave says she no longer wishes to do it, I'll ask for, the volunteer at the next meeting, yes?
Yes, Chair, we can certainly do that, or we can go out to the committee independently, if that's easier for you. Yes, just in case there's any visits that Dave Nevitt would wish to organise before July, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's a thought, yes. Dependent on Councillor Cave's reply, then that, yes, we will probably end up going out to them individually. Okay, so I think we've done that bit, haven't we? What else was it, Amy? Yeah, do we have any ideas for task and finish groups? Councillor Lovelock Edwards?
Yes, I do, Chair. Mindful of the discussion that we had sort of the beginning of the meeting around the Calcott Sports Centre, and in particular the focus on giving equal opportunity if accessible to women and girls and disabled members. I was wondering if there's capacity for us to consider looking at the sports and leisure sector and sort of carrying out some sort of investigatory work then into sort of levels of participation by women and girls and sort of underrepresented groups. As we know, sports and leisure sector is a key driver, gives us the ability to sort of engage, sort of to address a lot of issues. Such as inactivity, poor health, aspirations for young people, and about improving the accessibility and the opportunity too for older people. And as we know, sort of participating in any type of either informal or organised sport sort of reduce the sedentary lifestyles, increases social participation, reduces feelings of anxiety and loneliness. And I'm just wondering if there's scope for us to do that in terms of, are we fulfilling sort of any sports strategy that we may have or we may look to link up to in terms of in line with the sort of overall well-being and equalities sort of policies that we have in place. And as I've said earlier, mindful of our efforts to ensure that there is equality of opportunity and equality of aspiration, to ensure that what sports that we have across the Vale, in which there are many and varied, whether formal or informal, we are sort of widening and deepening the level of participation that people sort of can access to. And I'm happy to sort of put that in more sort of articulate and sort of robust language then in an email to Amy and to fellow members, if that helps, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lovelock Edwards. Amy, is that something we can do?
Absolutely, Chair. I can certainly take that away, and I would be very grateful for the written confirmation from Councillor Lovelock Edwards. but I've noted that down as a suggestion, yes.
Thank you.
If I may, Chair, as well, just to point out that obviously if any of the committee members would like to make any further suggestions, they're welcome to do so in writing to myself following the meeting, just in case they may be formulating a thought or an idea at the moment. There's no pressure to present that to myself at the moment. There is opportunity to do that following the meeting, but any suggestions this evening are welcome.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anybody else who would like to make a comment or give a suggestion on task and finish? No, there's tumbleweeds. Okay, so in that case, I will go to the recommendations. The recommendations are that the forward work programme schedule for 25-26 be approved, that the remit of Live Well Scrutiny Committee be noted, that the members of the Live Well Leisure Management Contract Working Group be appointed as discussed tonight, following confirmation from Councillor Cave, and that the Inherited Healthy Living and Social Care Scrutiny Committee Budget Working Group be disbanded. Are we happy with those recommendations? Councillor Lovelock-Edwards?
Yes, Chair, happy to support.
Okay, and I'm happy to second. I think that's it then, isn't it, Amy? We have nothing else that's urgent under part 1 or part 2, do we?
No, that's correct, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. So that concludes our business today. The next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, the 8th of July. So I would just like to say thank you to everyone who has attended tonight. And I hope you have a lovely evening. And Amy, I have sent you an email regarding the minutes from the last meeting.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, committee.
Thank you. Bye.
Night all.